So we have this structure here that we created in our last tutorial where we saw about how to structure our project in C++ and Qt, right? But today we are going to do the login part. So in the last tutorial, what we did was we kept the login source files inside our core directory. But I would change a bit about this thing here, because what I want to do is, what we actually want to do is, if you go to your Finder and inside your actual project directory, inside source, inside core, you directly have your login authentication SPP right here. But instead what we're going to do is we're going to create a subfolder and call it login authentication and have these files, these two files inside of this login authentication. Also copy and paste this CMake list here, or else this folder will not be recognized, right? And I'll not change this add library here, this code in the CMake, because this is doing exactly what we need to do. But as we move the two files into this folder, this CMake needs to be changed. So if you go to your Qt creator again and run your CMake, now you're getting an error. Because why? Because this CMake is trying to add library which are not even inside this directory. So I'll just empty this for now and save it and run again in our Qt creator. It's up here. So inside our core CMake, what I'm going to do is add sub directory, and this directory is what? Login authentication, right? Login authentication. So now our login authentication subdirectory is here with the CMake. This we already wrote. So what we want to do is, inside our header, we are trying to create a login. If we see the UI of our login page, we have two fields, username and password. So we need to send the username and password to our server, which is seated somewhere else. Like in any type of software that you're trying to log in, you act as a client. It will send the credentials to the server, and the server checks if it is a valid user or not and sends back the response, right? And these credentials are stored somewhere in the database in some table, and then it will compare and check. But we are not doing the server's part, we are only doing the client's part where we send the credentials. We're not actually doing the authentication. We are just being the client here. We'll connect with the server, send our credentials, get the response, and then let the user pass in or out. In any type of software, similar things happen. So an app doesn't need to have its own server in the app itself, in the package. No, it doesn't have to have it. The server will be situated somewhere in the browser. That's it. And you can create a server in anything. If you want to have a server in pure C++, you can use core library. If you can have server in Python Django, is fine. And Fast API is fine. In JavaScript is fine. The only thing this system will do is, in the login system, is it will send the HTTP request with the credentials. That's it. So that's the part we are going to do today. So for that, I'll include QObject before anything, because we need to use Qt stuff inside our login authentication. You know why? Because we are we're making the client through Qt network library. We can, there is a library called libcurl for C++, but we are making an app in Qt, and Qt has so beautiful library already given to you, so much simpler. It doesn't make sense to use libcurl anymore. I mean, yeah, let's go with the Qt given library, which is QNetworkAccess. But right now you can see an error here. I need to fix this before moving forward. This QObject is not being included, saying object file not found. Is because we have not included our Qt core in this CMake. It's probably somewhere in other directories, but it's here in the app controller, but it has nothing to do with having it in the Qt core. So inside logging authentications QMake, what we're gonna do is we're gonna link libraries. Sorry, target link libraries. So, and our target is what? Core lib. Core lib is the target. So in our core lib, in this core library, what I want to include is privately qt6 core. Seems fine. So what we are doing is we are linking this core library which has these two files with the qt core. So these files can able to use the features given by the qt core. So if I go back to my header file, you can see that the error is gone. And before anything else, let's create a class called login authentication. This will publicly inherit from QObject, and will it also have a QObject macro. And now let's understand what do we want in this class. If we go see our GUI, we want what? A login method. We need to be able to take two parameters, username and password, and should be able to log in. So I will have this function publicly. This function will return nothing, but we'll try to log in. So login qstring email and qstring password. That should be okay. So what is this trying to do? This function is responsible to take two parameters, email and password, and this will be parameters coming from the user through this portal, login portal. It will take these two parameters and send it to the server. It is responsible to send it to the server. That's it. And what else do we want? Think. So we want this function. We also need a flag. What kind of flag do we might need? See, whenever user inputs email and password and hits sign in, then users should know that something is being processed. There should be a loader bar coming up and running until this client sends the credentials to the server and receives the response. Till then, the loader needs to keep on loading, right? So that user would be aware that the processing is happening, the networking is happening behind the backend. And then the user will not be confused or start changing the credentials. Once he hits the credentials and hits the sign in, this entire box will be disabled and should be waited for the response. And he would be allowed whenever the authentication is passed or failed. If it's failed, then he can again change the credential. That's it. I hope you understood. It's not that confusing, right? We are keeping a flag. So the flag will be of Boolean type. Let's say loading. This loading flag. This will check if the status is loading or not. Prefer anything else. I'll give the status in a private variable. I'm loading. This will give false in the beginning. Why false? Because whenever you start application, the loading is always false, right? Whenever you enter the credentials and hit sign in, then the loading happens. So initially it's false. This loading is responsible for what? Getting this, checking this status. What else we might need? Okay, when everything is happening, we need to have a very nice interaction or communication with the GUI and the backend. And to do that, we have something called QProperty. If you don't know what this is, I already have a tutorial on this in my game playlist. Even though it's a part of the game, you can easily understand what this does from that tutorial. So it has few parameters you can see for now. The type name, read, write, and notify, right? Our type name will be bool, name will be loading. It takes a function, okay? And read means what? It's a getter. Reads means it is getting. If you know OOP, then you know what getter is. Getters and setters in class, right? So our getter is loading because it is getting the value. It has the return type bool. That means that we're gonna return a boolean value. So our getter is going to be loading and set loading and loading changed. This is set loading, which is a setter, which is responsible for setting the loading status, and this is going to be a signal. Now this is only responsible for watching if this changed, then it connects the GUI and C++ all together. Basically, the main point behind this, I recommend you watching that tutorial I created for Q property in my game series. But what this basically does is it makes our C++ code be acknowledged by the mock. Mock means meta object compiler. So any our like normal C++ functions will be acknowledged by Qt automatically by the meta object compiler. This meta object compiler is responsible for compiling Qt like libraries, the Qt core and everything, Q object. These are being compiled by this MOC, right? Mock. So any function that you like this general C++ function will be automatically be compiled through this Q property, and there is a good sync between the GUI and the backend, or this code, this getters and setters, the signals, anything. There will be a very nice sync between them. If there anything changed in the signal, then it will automatically be reflected on the GUI. So for that, but if you want to go in further detail, I recommend watching the tutorial. We did this, but now we need to set the getters and setters. So I'll hit double click on this and refactor, and I'll have the definition inside login authentication class. But we have an error because we have not included the header. Include login authentication .hpp. Login authentication .hpp. Well, did we? Oh, login authentication.hpp. Okay, perfect, fine. And let's create all these things first, and then void, we need also a setter which sets the value, set loading. And if it's setting a value, that we need to send it through a parameter, right? So it will set a value as a bool value. So this will be the setter. And what else we need? We have this signal loading changed. So create a signals loading changed. Our signal is always void. Okay, if you don't know what signals and slot is, then I also have a tutorial on signals and slot in the game series. Even though it's a part of the series, you can still watch it to understand what signals and slots are. So we have this void login changed signal, and I want to do one more thing here. I want to make this login function invocable. What does invocable means? Q invocable. When I have this Q invocable keyword in front of the any function, that means that this function will be callable inside QML. Callable inside QML. And why this happens? This is if you don't write this Q invocable, you wouldn't be able to call this login in the QML directly. To call this function directly in QML, you should use Q invocable. That's the whole point of using this. Okay. So because it's in the GUI, right? Whenever the user hits the email and password and hits sign in button, we'll just call this function in QML. Seems good. Before anything else, also write the setter. Let's write a setter for this one as well. This is loading. This is a getter, right? So it will return mLoading. mLoading was keeping was the current status of the loader. So it will return this type and setter will set the type. But how would it set it? So this will set how would it set it? It takes a value. See, if you have to set a new loading status, you will give it as a parameter, and it will check this new status. It will check this new status with the old status and checks if it is same or not. If it's not same, then it means that the status has changed, and it will rewrite the status. So if mLoading is not equal to value, so if the last status is not equal to what the current status we're trying to set, that it means that these two status are different, means the status is changed, the system status has changed. So that means our current status should also be the change status, right? That's how we keep on updating the changed things. So this is changed, and after changing we also need to let the system know, the Q property know, that the thing had changed, and we already have a signal called loading changed, and we need to emit it. You said, like, you check that the value had changed or not. If it had changed, you set the new value, and then you also updated the system, or let the system know that this thing has changed through the signal. Okay, now we did the setter, getter. Now we need to do the login part, and this is the main part. For this, see, what we need for this is we need to have this networking class called QNetworkAccessManager. So we might get an error because this comes from what? Network library inside Qt. So just like how we added core here, I want to also include my Qt6 network, because what we're saying is include this network library stuff into our core left, where our authentication is situated. Now you don't see an error, right? What this QNetworkAccessManager class is responsible is to send the request to connect with the server and send and get any kind of request. It gets you connected with the server unless you talk or communicate. That's the entire thing this class does. So let's go ahead and use this here. QNetwork. See, if I hit F1 in this thing and go see here, I want to send a post request to the client, right? So post request, I'll search post. See, anything you get confused about, we see, no developer knows everything beforehand. I don't know anything. Nobody knows. Any smart YouTuber you see, they don't know shit. Even the greatest of the greatest programmer, they don't know everything. The best thing a developer knows is to go through the documentation and find the solution to the problem, or to understand what he or she is doing. See, now I want to do a post request. Now I want to see how the post request is happening inside QNetworkAccessManager. Find next. Where is the post? I see get. Yeah, here I see post. To send post request, we have this method post, but this function is going to return what? Return QNetworkReply. This is also object type. To use this, now this thing, the post request, is going to store return in QNetworkReply. So I will also go include this. Include QNetworkReply reply. See, this is going to return a pointer to the QNetworkReply. So what I'm going to do is QNetworkReply pointer reply, and then store the post request. Post request. To use the post request, we need to first create the object of our access manager, right? So in the header, I'll go and inside private, I'll create an object of instance of the network access manager. QNetwork manager and manager. Okay, I created this instance, and this instance manager dot post will return this QNetwork type reply response. So we are keeping it inside here because it's going to return what? A pointer to QNetwork, and it will be stored in reply. That's nice. And if you want to send a push request, it takes two things: QNetwork request and a data type, or any kind of data, QI data, multi-part data, something data, right? So it means that we need to first create QNetwork request. It's also a object of its own. So we're gonna go and create class here, include class, include QNetwork request. QNetwork request. Now we should be able to use QNetwork request. So it uses QNetwork request, but I don't know what QNetwork request does. So QNetwork, I'll create this type. I'll hit F1 here and see what it does, because I need to use this, right? It says the URL to, okay, I get what it does. See, I know this, what it does, how it does, but I'm working like this, looking at the document, because I want to show you this is how a developer should work. Nobody has everything in mind. Right now I have it, but it's because I'm working daily on these kind of stuff. But if you're first learning this, then you have to have a habit of going through the documentation, figuring out, see the parameters, find such parameters, how they have been used. When I thought of sending a push request. To send a push request, we needed a QAccessManager. But then when I thought that it gives you the response in pointer of QNetworkReply, I created a QNetworkReply. And to use this post as a parameter, I needed QNetworkRequest. See, like this, I am going through what I want to success, like what I want to get. I'm like digging it through, Not, I could have like directly wrote the code to you and you would have not understood it, but I'm breaking down things, like I'm taking things apart and then letting you know, see, this is how we need to pursue our problem. So QNetwork request, what does it take? It takes a QURL. Okay, so I'll create a QURL. This is a variable, and our URL, this URL is going to be the URL from the server that we are going to send request to. And this QNetwork request takes a QURL, okay, and URL. Perfect, I understood what this does. Getting error because the QURL needs a header too. Okay, and include QURL. Perfect, should be able to use it. QURL, and we need to give URL network request. Request, I didn't instantiate it, so I create an instance request and then used URL. And see, whenever you think, I already saw the header here, whenever you think about sending a request to a server, or if you're sending HTTP request, you're not sending plain data, you're sending a well structured data which has like a header component or payload or a type of request, everything, you send it all together. That's what makes it a request. Sending just a raw text is not HTTP request. HTTP request means it is of a certain design. It goes as a certain design, right? So it has a header, it has a content, has a payload, something like that. That's why it makes a request. So now we have a URL where I still have not kept something but random here, something URL. We will set this up, and in this URL we are going to request it. We're going to use this request in this URL, and we also need to set a header. So request.set header. Yes, see what is he saying here? Known headers const q variant. Okay, don't worry about this. Set header, then known q network request known headers. I already know what kind of header I want. So we are sending credentials, meaning that we need to set a JSON data. So q network, just watch it here, copy this. Our known header is content header. Content type header is going to be application JSON. It's going to be a JSON header. Means we are saying that we are sending a request in this URL, and the content of our payload or whatever content we are trying to send is going to be in JSON format. That's what we are saying here. But now we want to have a content too, right? We want to have this email and password in the JSON format because we are taking this from the user. Now we have to make it a JSON, and to do that we have something called QJSON object, but we have to include this header as well. See, this is how I'm figuring out what I need to include in the header. Include QJSON object, and I'll call this payload, let's say. Okay, and then this payload will have email, and this will be this email, whatever we're getting, and this payload will also need password. Yeah, password, and this would be password. Now understand this, okay? Now this, what is this doing is it's creating a JSON content just like this. It's going to create something like this, like email equal to some blah blah blah, some blah blah blah, email, whatever the user hits here, and similarly password and something blah blah blah, whatever the user hits here in the password, right? I'm just showing the example of what this JSON object will create. Now our JSON object payload is created. Now we already have whatever we needed for this. We needed a request, which is already set, so I can just get request here, and I also have a data that I want to send, which is a QJSON object, but I cannot send the object directly, so I'll just keep it inside a JSON file, JSON document. Let's say this is just a raw JSON for now, just in a text format, but I want to keep it as a document. So for that I can use QJSON document object, and I'll say doc. Inside of the doc I will use this payload. But I need to include this here as well. Include QJSON document. Now the error is gone, and I'm going to use this QJSON document doc to JSON. Okay, perfect. Now everything looks fine. Now I have actually able to send a request. This request has all the information, the destination URL. Here it has the type of header, whatever the type of header that we are trying to send, which is a JSON type, and the data that we're trying to send in the JSON format, because this request is saying that whatever is coming is of JSON type to the server. Now we have completed this part. Now this after this request, a response will be stored here as a QNetworkReply. Now I want to check. I need to use signal and slot before anything else to connect things. So what will I do is inside QNetworkReply, see, I need to go and check. If how do I know if I have already received the response or not. Whenever this is done, I need to know if I get a response or not here. So I need to see if there is a proper signal given to us in our Qt network. Let's find the network public slot signal. The signal finished. See, this finished is something that we are going to use, and I'll show you what this finished does. Where is the finished? Finished. This thing is emitted when the reply has finished processing. So whenever this is finished processing, then this signal is emitted. In the signal and slot, if you don't know what signal and slot is, I have a tutorial for signal and slot in the game series. You can go watch there. And I want to connect this reply to QNetworkReply finished. This is the signal. Oops. Here, and this comma, I will have lambda function here. So I will have a lambda function here for now. I'm sorry. So what am I trying to say is, when this object, reply object, when this is emitted, then run this function, lambda function. Okay, so what I want to run inside this function is, first of all, I want to capture everything from reference, things from reference. Okay, this is where the capture list is given. If you don't know what lambda functions are, I already have a tutorial on lambda functions as well, and how to use those in Qt. You can watch that series as well, that video as well. Connect, we have these things. This one's a key object, so I'll give a key object and connect. Okay, do we have a key object? Okay, key object, connect. We have these things. Semantic, we don't have. I mean, let's ignore this for now. Okay, so now what I want to do is, I want to have, whenever the reply is being processed, because after processing this signal will be emitted, after this signal's emission, this function will be run, because this is the slot, right? After this signal, this slot will be running. And I want to check if this reply, I'm getting this reply be usable here, because I have used a capture test. If reply dot error is equal to QNetworkReply no error. Now what I'm trying to do here is understand this, okay? I'm saying if this reply, whatever the reply is stored here from this post request, if it's not, the error is not equal to, is equal to no error. If there is no error, this means if there is no error, then I'm gonna emit a signal, let's say login successful. Login successful. Well, I don't have the signal yet, so I'll go on and create two signals, login successful and will login failed, let's say. And here, if I go back to my CPP, so I'm what? SSFULL. No, I just need one L. Successful. Okay, image successful. I'm saying like if there is no error, then means this login is successful. Whatever request you send with the credentials, it goes to the server. Server checks, it does everything, sends a response, which is stored in this reply. And if there's no error, then it means that you have successfully logged in. But if it's an error, then you have failed. Else emit login failed. You know what I'm doing here? You understood, right? We're connecting two signals in slot. We're checking if whenever this response that is coming to this reply is finished and this signal is emitted, which is running this function. Inside this function, we're checking if the whatever response we got in this reply here, if that's error, if the data from the error is equal to no error, means if there is no error, then login is successful. If there is error, then login failed. So in the actual server's part, there is going to be a database. There is going to be a table where the credentials are stored. The server will map those credentials and sends back the response by taking these parameters from our client, right? Now I need to test this if this is working or not. Oh, sorry, we didn't use the loading, did we? Let's set a loading. Set loading true. So what we are doing is, whenever this function is started, login, our status is set to true. And whenever we get a response, I should be able to stop the loading. Stop. Oh, sorry. Set loading false, right? And also we created, I want to delete this thing. We dynamically started that thing. I want to delete it. Reply delete later. Okay, just make sure you to have this inside lambda function. Okay, if you have it here, if you have this thing here outside lambda function, it will automatically delete. Just after coming the response, it will be gone. You will not be able to see the response at all. But this will allow it to wait for the response to come and then only delete it, because this only happens after the response is like came to us, right? If when the response comes, only this function will run, then only this function will run, or else it will not run. If you have this delete later outside of this thing, then it will automatically delete it whenever you, before getting the reply, it will be deleted. So let's check this out. Now we don't have a GUI, but we need to check if user sends a credential, then if it's login successful or login failed. And to do that, okay, well, I forgot to set this as well. Set loading false. I did. Okay, I didn't have it here. Okay, that's perfect. No problem. Okay, now let's move to, because we don't have GUI, let's have this for testing inside our main.cpp. And for that, what I'll do is I include login authentication. Oh, sorry, .spp. Now see, I included this, but I'm getting an error. Why? You know why? Because in the CMake, we have not linked our library to the app. This app target, like you have included the UI module, but not the login authentication. So our library is core-lev, right? You see, our target is core-lev. So I'll include this in our app CMake. So core, somebody's calling, sorry. So core-lev, we included this library, which will be now connected with app. And if I go see main.cpp, file not found. Okay, we still didn't get the file. So why are we not able to use that file still? Because now our this login authentication is way deeper inside the subdirectories. Now our app controller main is inside app controller, and app controller and core are the siblings. And inside sibling, inside core, there is a login authentication. Inside login authentication, there is a login authentication source files. And these two are in different directories, first of all, and they are not even like parent or children directories. These are sibling directories, the core and the app controller. So in the core, inside the login authentication, we have our main source file that we need to use inside the app controller's main.cpp. And to do that, in the app controller, the CMake list, what I want to do is I want to include this directory here. And to do that, we have something called target include directories, and our target will be app, and I will include it privately. And I want to include what? This directory, right? Login authentication. So let me take CMake include, oh no, sorry, source directory. src, inside core, inside login authentication directory. So what did I do here? If you look at this carefully, you see that I included a directory. This is given by CMake itself. This gives you the path of our project, and in the project, inside source, inside core, inside login authentication, we have this core-lev. Now it should work. If I go back to my main.cpp, yes, now there is no error. Now what I want to do is I want to initiate the login authentication class. I will do it after the engine. Login authentication, login authenticate. I created this instance. Now I still need to have the signals and slot here. Key object connect. Oh, I don't have a queue object here. Include queue object. The connect, the signal and slots connect is a part of queue object, right? So this will take what? I need to connect my login authenticate, this thing with the signal. What the signal is? Our signal is login successful. Login authentication on login successful. Then I want to create a lambda again, and then all right. See, what I'm saying here is I'm saying connect our this object with this signal, if whenever this login successfully is emitted, then run this function, right? Run this function. So inside the function, I'm gonna say QInfo login successful. Oh, so whenever there is a login successfully emitted, then you should emit this thing. And similarly, I'll also connect the single slot for login failed. Right now we are just testing it through this main.cpp, right? When we have a GUI in the coming tutorials, we're going to directly have these implementation directly from the GUI. But this signal slot will be situated somewhere in the app controller.cpp file, which we will create in the future. And our next function is going to be login. This is the main function, okay? This will be called from the QML or GUI, this login function. And I'm gonna give two values here as a parameter. One is email, one is password. And this should call this login function. It will send a request, and if there is any of these emitted, oh sorry, login failed. Login failed. See, whenever, now what did I do? I create an instance. I connected this instance to the signal, same here. And then if I want to run this function, which is the main function that is supposed to run to send the post request of our credentials, right? And these credentials right now I'll give it manually, but then this should be set through our GUI whenever the user inputs the value. And here's the submit. This function will run, and whenever this function runs, there will be either login successful emission or login failed emission. If login successful emission is caught, then login successful will be printed, else this login failed will be printed. So I have the example server created in Python. Let's have a look at that for testing. Why Python? Because we are only making the client, right? You can have a server in any language, it doesn't matter. So what I want to use here is so I'll take this URL because I need to use this, right, inside my login.cpp. I'll give you that Python file in the description, so I'll use that URL here, but I'll give login here because why? Because we have the login implementation in the login route, right? So login is needed. If you don't use the login, then this will not go to the login route. And if you have worked with some of the web things, then you know what I'm trying to do, right? And then in the main.cpp here, I need to send the hard-coded email and password for now, test.example.com as email, but this is technically given by the user, and this would be technically compared through the database, not from the hard-coded value. But right now we are just trying to use the hard-coded value to test it. Now these are the right credentials. When I run this, I need to see logging successful this thing in the terminal. It builds fine. If I run this, alright, hey, this is the problem, this reply. Okay, I think this is a problem. Maybe not. Let's try it, because I think the reply gets overwritten. Yeah, I have the hello word popped up. Login successful, perfect. Let's try main.cpp and change our login credentials manually instead of my password, which is the right password. and this is also write email. Instead I'll remove example and write this email.com, and let's see if we get login failed or not. Login failed, perfect. Now this is all for client for sending HTTP request to our server with our login credentials, and in the coming part we'll explore the tokens, sending tokens, receiving tokens, and receiving profiles of the user who are trying to log in, and those aspects. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.